What if the Bible's most mysterious patriarch wasn't a myth, wasn't a metaphor, but a real historical character? What if we've just been looking for him in the wrong place, at the wrong time, using the wrong map of history? Let's dig into some radical claims asserting that the history of the ancient biblical world may be in need of some serious revision. Let's journey into the Bronze Age backwaters, where sacred text meets shattered tablet, where myth might just turn back into history. And you're about to step into the sandstorm. Hey, making these videos takes a lot of hard work and research, so don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. And be sure to head over to my website, JewsGodHistory.com, where you can access specially crafted podcasts that take you on a deep dive into Jewish history, thought, and culture. Check it out. For centuries, scholars have debated the book of Genesis. Is it history or theology? Was Abraham a flesh and blood tribal leader or a legendary ancestor created to unify Israel's identity? Mainstream academics say the stories are too late, too idealized, and too disconnected from hard archaeological evidence. No camels, no pharaohs, no record of Ur, no Abram or Abraham. But what if we consider something dangerous? Namely, a revised timeline. The core idea? That the traditional Egyptian chronology, our historical measuring stick for dating the ancient Near East, is off by centuries. What if we place Abraham several centuries earlier than the conventional biblical timeline suggests, aligning him with the early Bronze Age, circa 2000 to 1800 BCE, not the Middle Bronze Age, as traditionally assumed? Fix that, and the ancient world may well snap into place. Suddenly, biblical figures once thought to be myth walk onto the stage of history. And the first among them? Of course, Abraham. Genesis tells us that Abram, as he was originally known, came from Ur of the Chaldees, a city scholars have long identified with the great Sumerian metropolis of Ur, modern-day Tel el-Mukayyar in southern Iraq. It's impressive, sure, ziggurats, gold tombs, royal archives. But there's one big problem. The Chaldeans, mentioned in the very same verse, didn't show up there until over 1,000 years later. Oops. But maybe we're looking in the wrong Ur. Some propose that Ur of the Chaldees was actually located in northern Mesopotamia, near Haran, where Abram and his family later settled. Even more boldly, there's a theory that this Ur might be linked to modern-day Urfa, Sanliurfa, in southeastern Turkey, a region steeped in early Semitic tradition, and right along ancient trade routes leading into Canaan. Here, names like Nahor, Haran, and even Terah echo through the canyons. It's the terrain of tent dwellers, herdsmen, and semi-nomadic patriarchs. The southern Ur, a massive urbanized powerhouse. The northern Ur, a perfect match for the tribal Amorite lifestyle described in Genesis. So, was Abraham a city slicker from Sumer, or a tribal elder from the mountainous north? Check your geography and your calendar. Now, here's where it gets exciting. In the early 20th century, archaeologists excavated the ancient city of Mari, located on the Euphrates River. What they found stunned the scholarly world. Tens of thousands of clay tablets, correspondence, treaties, and tribal reports from the 18th century BCE. Among the names, Avram or Abram, Yaakov or Jacob El, Benjamin, Laban, even Ishmael. These were popular Amorite names, not invented by biblical writers, but actually in use in the time in which we might place Abraham. And the customs? Right on target. The Mari documents describe marriages arranged by dowry contracts, patriarchal household structures, land disputes resolved by tribal elders, sacred oaths made over altars, and even the wandering Arameans living in tents by the river. This isn't just similar, it's eerily familiar. Add to that the Nuzi tablets from further east, which confirm legal customs like adoption for inheritance, handmaid surrogacy, and selling birthrights. Does that sound familiar? Some argue that the patriarchal world of Genesis isn't fiction at all. It's documented, and it belongs exactly where we'd expect to find Abraham, in the early second millennium BCE, among the Amorites of northern Mesopotamia. But let's not forget the camel conundrum. Ask a biblical minimalist, and they'll tell you the presence of camels in Genesis is anachronistic. Domesticated camels, they claim, weren't common until around 1000 BCE, long after Abraham supposedly lived. But we're not necessarily buying such humpbacked hypocrisy. There is, in fact, earlier evidence, like a camel figurine in Egypt from around 2500 BCE, camel bones at copper mines in the Negev desert, and Proto-Sinaitic inscriptions mentioning camel caravans. Sure, camels weren't widespread, but they were there. Rare, exotic, exactly what a tribal patriarch with wealth and long-distance trading routes might have. In other words, if you're Abraham and you're rolling deep into Egypt, you're writing in style. Now, let's talk Egypt. In Genesis 12, Abram travels to Egypt during a famine. Pharaoh takes his wife Sarah. God intervenes. Abram leaves with wealth and animals. Critics shrug. No Pharaoh is named. No historical record exists. Pure myth, they say. But not so fast. What if we shift Egyptian dynasties back by about 250 years? This causes a domino effect across the ancient world. But crucially, it places Abraham's Egyptian visit during the late 12th dynasty, a golden age of Middle Kingdom stability. And here's where it gets juicy. One of the pharaohs of this era, Senuseret III, was known for expanding Egypt's reach into Canaan and brutally cracking down on Semitic populations in the Nile Delta. Could this be the pharaoh who feared that Abraham's God might be more powerful than Egypt's? And when Genesis says that Abram left Egypt, very rich in livestock, silver and gold, well, that's exactly what Senuseret's era was exporting to the Levant.
And Pharaoh put agents in charge of him, and they sent him off with his wife and all that he possessed. From Egypt, Abram went up into the Negev, with his wife and all that he possessed, together with Lot. Now Abram was very rich in cattle, silver, and gold.
If we accept a somewhat revised, or what some would call a radically revised chronology, the biblical narrative and the historical timeline are no longer enemies. They're long-lost cousins, finally reunited. But let's be clear. Archaeologist David Rohl and other scholars such as John Bimson and Douglas Petrovich are not without critics. Mainstream Egyptologists reject this revised chronology, saying it wreaks havoc with established synchronisms, especially those involving astronomical records and Assyrian king lists. Accusations include cherry-picking evidence, stretching gaps in the data, and underplaying contradictions. So who's right? That depends on your tolerance for paradigm shifts. The revised chronology may not be entirely correct in every detail, but it's worth asking questions no one else is daring to ask. What if we've built biblical skepticism on the scaffolding of a flawed timeline? What if the lack of evidence is a result of looking in the wrong strata? And what if Abraham's story isn't a late invention, but a buried memory of an actual Bronze Age wanderer? Here's what we know. The Amorite world described in Genesis matches archaeological evidence from Mari and Muzi. Northern Mesopotamia fits Abraham's journey far better than southern Ur. Early evidence for camels, trade, and Semitic tribal life matches the picture. And David Rohl's new chronology, even if imperfect, restores the Bible's narrative to a world that actually existed. So, what do we do with Abraham? The answer is pretty simple. We stop burying him. Bottom line, maybe the stories in Genesis weren't just tales for the firelight. Maybe they were echoes, transmitted across generations, preserved through exile, and written down not just to inspire, but to remember. And maybe, just maybe, the man who left Ur, who walked the Fertile Crescent, who defied Pharaoh and built altars to an unseen God, was as real as the sand beneath our feet. And the Hebrew Bible is just getting started.